Welcome back. We to preview Saturday's Premier League match between Queen's Park Rangers and Newcastle United at Loftus Road. Let's go start with the home side. Relegated last time out. Terrible defeat at Manchester City.
It was, wasn't it? And they're now bottom of the table because Burnley, obviously, Burnley went down as well, but they won at Hull to go above QPR. So sitting right at the bottom, 9 points adrift of Newcastle, who they play here, just outside the bottom three. And yeah, obviously, it was always going to be a very tough game. They've had a couple of big games at City the last couple of years. There's the famous one when Aguero scored, the last minute winner to win the title, but for this one, they were nowhere near as competitive as that one 2 years ago, were they? You look at it, you look at the game, and you just wonder, like, how did they just perform so bad? I know Aguero was playing fantastically, but you look at the game and you think City just completely blew them away. They didn't even really put up a fight, and if they had won the game, they'd only be 6 points behind, and they would still be in the slightest of chances. But obviously, going to City and winning was always a tough ask. But the way they went down, losing 6-0 like that, was just so tame, and it's another disappointing season for them. Sort of all the talk about the players and sort of the squad problems. Chris Ramsey, the manager, is he the right man to lead them? There's so many other problems with the club, and going down like that, it almost seemed fitting for a club that is just sort of in complete turmoil and all over the place, and certainly not the right way to go down. We talked, about Burnley winning at Hull, and that was the right way to go down. Getting a win and pleasing your fans, even though they did go down. But the way QPR went, certainly very tame, and they're going to have to go back to the Championship next season. It's going to be a struggle for them.
It will be a struggle. You mentioned the summer they got ahead is obviously massive in terms of players, but the manager as well. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Ramsey. I think the chairman, Tony Fernandes, said that there will be an announcement in due course, whether that means that Ramsey will stay or, it's difficult to say. He hasn't done too much wrong. He just hasn't really been good enough squad. I mean, Redknapp struggled earlier on the season. Obviously, Ramsey came in, knows the club very well. Whether he's given a chance at that level, you never know. But players-wise, I think it's obviously massive this summer. Charlie Austin's obviously the main one. Goals have dried up, a touch in the second half of the season, but he's had a really good season in a struggling team. He's scored a lot of goals, and you can imagine there'll be a lot of clubs interested in his signing him this summer. Decent wages he's on as well, so maybe they'll look at it and think, we've got a good player here, but if we can ship some wages off the wage bill. And I think there's a few others. Joey Barton's out of contract. I read I think it's on 90,000 a week, and they're trying to get him to sign on for 30,000 a week. Obviously, that's a massive problem. The whole thing with the financial fair play as well. Obviously, QPR challenging the Football League's ruling on that with the money that's been written off and stuff. They're looking at a 50-60 million pound fine possibly if that goes against them, and it's just all things. It's just a bit of a mess at the moment, isn't it? Players not sure, manager not sure, got the financial problems. If there's an embargo this summer, you never know whether that will come in, even if it comes in maybe January or next summer. It's just, obviously QPR is a decent club in terms of, it's in London. You can imagine foreign players will want to go there, but it's difficult for them to go down. You can see, you look what's happened to Wigan, teams like that, and really struggling, going down again, and you wonder whether they go down. Obviously next season, I think next season is absolutely massive. If they don't go up, obviously the financial problems again, and it's tough times, and you have to feel sorry for their supporters at the moment.
I mean, the one thing that will be good for them is those parachute payments. There's a lot of money that the Premier League gives relegated clubs. It will certainly help them if they do, say, encounter financial problems. But you mentioned Joey Barton, and he came out this week and there's just no squad harmony in the club. He talked about this sort of bad eggs at the club. He mentioned the likes of Isla, Zarate, all those sort of players. Vargas as well. There's talk that I think it was back in March that Vargas refused to. He's injured at the moment, Vargas, but there's talk that he refused to come on in a game back in March. Didn't fancy it, and that should never happen at a football club. You look at, we talked about Burnley. They've got nowhere near the squad quality in terms of you'd say raw talent as QPR, but the way they're sort of managed, and they're a very harmonious club, and they really work really hard every game, and QPR just aren't like that at all. They've got all these sort of mismatch of personalities. There's no harmony in the squad, and you do wonder, it's just not the right way to go about things, is it? It was the same when they last went down, and they didn't really deserve to go up last year. They got that late goal in the playoff final against Derby, when Derby played better at Wembley, and Derby should have won that game, and QPR should have really been in the Championship this season if you judge it like that. But they didn't really prove that they deserved to get into the Premier League this year. They went on that terrible run. They didn't win an away game until was it February, I think, against Sunderland or wherever it was. But so they've never really proved this season that they deserved to beat Derby last year. Most people thought Derby deserved it, and certainly we talked about the squad. They certainly need to just sign the right players this summer. They've got to it can't be that hard to sort of look at and think, right, who's going to really work hard for us in the Championship? Who's going to be a sort of pull for everyone else? Who's going to pull for the squad? And so I think that's their biggest problem. Ramsey's he's done as well as he can, but with all those sort of different personalities, it's been such a difficult job for him.
Difficult job. QPR obviously down Championship football next season. Team looking to avoid Championship football, mightily close at the moment, is Newcastle. Last time out, obviously they went on an 8-game losing streak, which was absolutely terrible. Ended that last time out against West Brom. The game itself, they went 1-0 down. Again, not defending a set piece. I think John Carpenter's mentioned the problems. If you can't defend set pieces, you then you're in big trouble, especially at this level of football. And I think the goal came quite quickly after that, though. Ayoze Perez, who's probably been one of their better players this season, he's got a good quality about him, and good finish as well into the bottom corner, and sense of relief around the stadium just to get that sort of draw. And on the face of it, you're thinking a draw at home to West Brom, is it a great result? Probably not, but the fact that it ended that 8-game losing run and moved them, obviously they were in the bottom 3 at a point on Saturday, weren't they, with obviously Hull lost as well, so they're down there at the moment, but Newcastle sitting in 17th at the moment, and you're just really struggling to see, obviously 2 games left. You looked at they went down a few seasons ago, didn't they, and a club of Newcastle size should not be in the Championship. They're a massive club, look at their fan base up there, but in massive struggle again, and you never know what's going to happen.
Certainly, you look at the league table, and they're certainly nowhere near safe. 2 points above the bottom 3. You look at their fixtures, and you probably say they've got a decent chance of staying up. Going to QPR here, obviously QPR, the fact that they've been relegated should make this game easier for Newcastle. And then they travel to Leicester, on the final day of the season. So that's they host West Ham. They host West Ham on the final day of the season, and that's another winnable game for them because West Ham mid-table, they haven't got loads to play for. So you think that that's another winnable game for Newcastle, but the way they're playing at the moment is just simply not good enough, is it? And you look at the goal difference as well. That could really come down to it. They've got the worst goal difference out of any of the sides that could still go down. The only teams with worst goal difference are QPR and Burnley, who have already gone down. So that's disappointing for Newcastle. And I think the Carver situation. There's no way he's going to get the job this summer. But there was that quote he said, I'm the best coach in the Premier League. You just wonder, what on earth is he thinking? You're clearly not, because an 8-game losing streak. In terms of their recent away form, it's been terrible. They've lost their last 5 away games and not scored in any of those games. So, you just wonder where the goal's going to come from. You probably say their best player is Sissoko, but he's had a couple of chances here and there in the last few games, but he can't put anything away. And it was a good finish from Perez in the West Brom game, but there's just nothing for them. And they'll certainly be looking. I think it's more about how Hull do in their last 2 games, because Hull play Spurs and Man U in their last 2 games. So that's very tough games for Hull. But if Hull can pick up a win in one of those, then the pressure is so much on Newcastle. And this is a massive, massive game for them.
Yeah, I think interesting. You mentioned QPR about players in the dressing room, whether they really care enough, and you think the same with Newcastle, don't you? Are there enough players in there that are too really fussed about the club? Obviously got a few players, Paul Dummett being one, who's obviously a local lad. They've got a few players up there, but they've got a lot of foreigners, people like Cabela, good players. But are they really that fussed about the club? I'm not too sure. Obviously, it's a massive game. QPR already down, but like Burnley, we mentioned, they'd be keen to put on, maybe win the last game of the season. Do you see Newcastle pick up anything from this game?
I think it'll be a draw. I think, like you say, QPR, they are down, but it is their last home game of the season. I certainly want to give the fans something to cheer about, before they, go back to the AF Championship football again next season. I'm going to say 2-2 in this one.
So I'm actually going to agree with draws. I don't think there'll be as many goals. Look at Newcastle, won 7 in their last 9 against QPR, not lost any either. So that's obviously decent. But I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. I say probably does that help Newcastle? Obviously, it's another point in the whole. Obviously, like you say, go to Spurs, don't they? So that's a tough game. So you can both see draws in this one. Thanks for joining us.